The topic that we're going to talk about today is good debt versus bad debt. I love to talk on the subject of debt. I think it's very interesting to me, but it's also very important. We all have a history and a paradigm about the subject of debt. Generally, our thinking comes from our parents, teachers, experiences we've had, our spouse or significant other. And some of those paradigms that we have about debt are good, and some of them may be misplaced. And so I'd like to take the next 15 minutes or so to unpack this idea. And I want to start with, my history with money growing up. I was learning about money and coming of age in the 1970s. And we had an interesting dynamic in the 70s where there was, the interest rate that we were paying when we borrowed money was about 8%, but we had a 12% inflation rate. And so that meant that what I learned was that debt was really a tool. Because, see, you could buy something and borrow money against it and pay 8% on the debt, but it was going up in value. The asset that you bought was going up in value by about 12% a year. So debt was really a tool. So that was my history as a young person and a young man of learning about that. Was a paradigm that I had, if you will, about debt. So then when I was in my mid-20s, I became a financial advisor, and I got introduced to the world of consumer debt, people financing their lifestyle with credit cards. And over my 25 years of being a financial advisor, I counseled many people on the subject of debt. And, there are really two schools of thought. Dave Ramsey and a Susie Orman would have one perspective on debt. A Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is, by the way, the best-selling finance book of all time. Robert Kiyosaki would have a different thought on debt. And what I would say is, so if you take the Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, and you take the Robert Kiyosaki, and you kind of put them in two different categories, my observation is, I think that both of them are right, and I think both of them are wrong. Let me unpack that. So debt can be a good thing, and debt can be a bad thing. It's basically how you use it that determines the category it falls in. So we take, lifestyle debt. Lifestyle debt would be for vacation, putting a vacation on a credit card. I love to go on a cruise, but I don't have the money. So you know what? I'll make payments on it. So we go and we have a great time. And I come back and I've got the memory, right? I have the experience, but now I have a credit card bill that I've got to pay off. I have a credit card. And we utilize a credit, but I pay it off. I pay the balance off every month. And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't have credit cards, as some financial people, financial quote experts would say that you shouldn't even have a credit card. I have a credit card, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have a credit card, but managing that well is important. And so we do that by paying the balance off every month. It's like overdraft protection at your bank. I mean, it can be a good thing, but you can abuse it, and people do abuse it, where they're always dipping into that overdraft protection. So you see, intentionality in life is important. It's important in life. It's really important in money. I mean, it's critical to be intentional with your money. Jim Rohn once stated that if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. End quote. So you see, intentionality in life is good, but it's really important when it comes to money. So consumer debt is pretty much bad. I would agree with that. I think most financial advisors would agree with that consumer debt is pretty much bad. Good debt, on the other hand, good debt is debt that you use to acquire assets. specifically income-producing assets. Robert Kiyosaki has a great definition of an asset and a liability. He says that the definition of an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So let's just kind of walk through some things. So from increasing difficulty. So let's take a vacation. Is debt on a vacation, or is a vacation an asset or a liability? Based on that definition. Well, when I get home, the vacation doesn't put any money in my pocket, right? So it would be a liability. So let's take a little more difficult one than the vacation. Let's look at your car. Now, let's say you have a car that is worth $20,000 and you don't owe any money against it. So it's free and clear. So is that an asset or a liability? That's a little tougher because, well, I could sell the car and I would have a $20,000 in my pocket. So in that sense, it is an asset. But if we use the definition where an asset is something that puts money in your pocket, a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket, the car would probably be more in a liability category because, you've got, even though you don't have a payment, you still have insurance, you have license, you got gas, you got repairs and maintenance, you got tires, you have those kinds of things. And so that would be more in the liability side of things. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need a car, right? Because you need a car to go make some money at your job or at your business, etc. Let's take an even more challenging example. Let's talk about your home. Financial advisors tell us that, generally your home is your biggest asset. The question is it really an asset? Now, someone like Robert Kiyosaki would put doubt in that. In fact, he would say your house is not an asset because you need a place to live. Whether you have debt against it or not, your house is going to cost you some money every month. So he would say that is a liability. So let's define what an asset would look like. So if we take, and I've got on the board behind me, if we had a $100,000 piece of property that was a rental house, and let's say that rental house produced $12,000 of income for us. But then we'd have some expenses on that, right? We'd have insurance, we'd have repairs and maintenance, real estate taxes, those types of things. So let's just say that was $4,000. What that leaves us with, you take the $12,000 minus the 4, and it leaves us with $8,000 of net income, net operating income. So let's say that in this example, our debt payment, we had debt against this, and our debt payment was $6,000. Well, that would mean in this example that we were making $2,000 a year of net profit after our debt service, right? So that would be an example of an asset. This is an asset because it's producing positive cash flow. We're utilizing debt that makes the payment on an asset and it produces positive cash flow. Now, Robert Kiyosaki would say that's good debt, right? He would say that's good debt. Dave Ramsey, he might say it's bad. I don't know for sure, but my guess is his question would be, will people manage it well, right? Will people manage this debt well? And, I think a quote from Shakespeare, an old quote that we learned in school about Shakespeare said, "Know thyself, and to thine own self be true." I think that's something good to bear in mind. Do you have the ability to manage debt or to be in a position where you have debt like this and not abuse it? I want to shift gears for just a minute. I want to talk about kind of a mind-altering fact that, I've struggled with, people that I know that are very astute financially struggle with. On August 15th of 1971, Richard Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. And, since then, it's really been all about printing money and inflation. So the mind bender is that now money is debt. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What? So money in my bank account is an asset, but the actual money is really a debt instrument. It's a debt instrument of the U.S. government. What's printed on the currency, if we take out a, $10 bill and we look at it, it doesn't say it's backed by gold or, backed by anything hard asset. It says it's backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. If money is debt, if the actual currency of money is debt, wouldn't it stand to reason that I should understand, that you should understand how to use it wisely? I mean, somebody once said that debt is like a hand grenade. Use it wisely or foolishly, to your advantage or peril. So if you have questions about debt, additional questions, we'd love to have a conversation with you. You can go to our website at 3dmoney.com for more information and to connect with us. I want to thank you for watching this. I know it's been just kind of a big picture view of debt, but hopefully it's created some questions in your mind, and connect with us, and we'd love to dig deeper into it if you have interest in that. Thanks for watching.